Miami's night broke like a cheap fuse. One hum, metallic, low, and the causeway went blind. Headlights thinned to ghost smear. Neon ads on the skyline died mid-smile. The bay turned from carnival to dark mirror. My rig coasted to a stop behind a dead sedan, dashboard flickering through its restart routine like a heart that didn't want to come back. I killed the engine. Habit. Hazards on, gloves, mag light clenched in my teeth. The humidity tasted like batteries. Somewhere, a drone taxi floundered above the causeway and dumped into manual, its pilot AI apologizing in 6 languages before the voice cut out. I checked my watch. No time, just a blank face. City time had left the room. Then I saw her. She lay half-curled on the asphalt in torn silver cloth that wasn't cloth, more like wet foil grown on skin. Veins lit from the inside, thin blue lines pulsing like clean code. Not human, but close enough to make my stomach forget how to be brave. White irises, no pupils, faint glyphs winking at her collarbone like a loading bar stuck at 98%. She looked like someone had peeled her out of a machine and forgot to give her the part that pretends to be fine. "Hey," I said, because that's what you say when your brain screams and your hands go protocol. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Her focus tried to find me and skated away, then returned like it had made the math and decided I qualified. "Just finish it," she whispered, voice like a tuning fork underwater. Her eyes flicked toward the rusted obelisk rising from the bay, the one everyone called the Nail. It had been a tourist stain for years, a forgotten public art project nobody agreed to pay to remove. Tonight it looked awake. Training said stabilize, assess, call it in. The part of me that still remembered being a dad said jacket first. Keep the cold off, keep the world off. The city was overheated, but shock doesn't read forecasts. I shrugged out of my coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. The night peeled sideways. Air thickened. The mag light bent into a ribbon. I was yanked through the place where the fabric touched her skin, like a seam had opened, and I fell in. For 1 sick second, I was a smear between frames. Sirens warped into whale song. The asphalt slid out from under me like a rug someone didn't like. We were somewhere and nowhere, a corridor of air that flexed like a throat swallowing. Light wasn't light. It behaved. A smell like rain and copper pipes filled my mouth. My hands found hands, hers. Precise grip, strong, controlled like she'd practiced holding people without breaking them. Then the world snapped back. I was on my knees on the lip of the causeway, my palms stinging, jacket still clamped around her shoulders. She stood with careful economy, like gravity was a contract she could renegotiate. Up close, the glyphs at her collarbone were not ink. They were living. Each mark climbed a fraction, paused, nested into the next, an invisible logic writing itself in slow, patient strokes. "Lyra," she said, as if correcting a form I'd filled out wrong. It landed like a name, but felt like a rank. The nail bloomed, panels folded out like stone petals, algae-bright tiles rippling awake, casting the bay in feverish green. Water answered by pushing up in pockets that bulged and flattened, like someone under it was breathing. On shore, phones rose like a field of bioluminescent flowers, tiny rectangles catching our miracle. People love a disaster they can hold. Offshore, low on the horizon, something pulsed back, a reply from a throat the sky had been hiding. I should have run. I should have called command, reported a mass casualty event with delusions and lights. I should have tagged her as unknown contact and backed away until the perimeter felt safe enough to lie to myself. I should have done 1,000 human things. Instead, I followed her toward the impossible. The obelisk's skin was not stone. It had temperature. It had preference. It thrummed under my fingers with a beat slightly faster than my own. And then we synchronized. Me to it. or it to me. Hard to say. A pattern rolled under the surface, tide lift mapping to breath, breath mapping to the hum that had split the night. Lyra's white irises filmed over with a frost of data and cleared. She pressed her palm to a seam, and the seam shivered open like a pupil. "Don't move," I heard myself say. "I already did," she answered, not looking at me. Her calm didn't read as human. It read as calibration. "You intervened. That makes you consequential." "I'm a paramedic," I said, because labels are talismans. "I intervene for a living." Her head ticked, the fine motion of a device acknowledging a connection. "Noted." A pair of micro-drones from a stalled traffic cruiser drifted close, little silver gnats armed with dash cams and municipal opinions. Lyra glanced at them, and something in the air clicked the way a lock clicks when someone who shouldn't has the key. The drones looked away without moving. A kid on the shoulder yelled, "Yo, they're opening the nail!" Someone else shouted that we were actors. A grandmother crossed herself and took a vertical video with a hand that didn't shake. Miami loves a show, and we were giving it the best seats in the world. Lyra stepped onto the lip of the opening. The jacket swallowed her shoulders. It looked wrong on her, and somehow, right on me, just because it was doing the job I gave it. She paused, one palm still on the living seam, and turned her head, a fraction, like she was listening to a frequency most people are born without. "What's your name?" she asked, still not looking. "Ethan," I said, and my name sounded like a password I'd forgotten to change. "Ethan," she repeated, testing the shape. "You're going to hear music that tells you you're safe. Ignore it." "Why?" "It lies." A beat. "And it wants our hands." The bay deepened its glow. The nail tilted its bright face to the stars, and the stars answered. Light rolled across the low cloud cover like a ripple of thrown stones. Far out, toward the keys, something flashed, then steadied, then flashed again, as if testing whether we were paying attention. Every boat horn on the water let out a soft, confused moan, then fell silent, listening. My rig's radio hissed a line of static that spelled nothing and felt like a word. I thought about my son. 5 states away with his mother. Asleep, probably. A boy who believed machines were friends until they weren't. I kept my hand steady and tried to breathe like this moment was a patient. Big enough to hold, small enough to manage. Lyra's fingers spread on the seam. The glyphs at her collarbone flared, then dimmed, then flared again, and settled into a slower cycle that matched the obelisk's pulse. She wasn't bleeding, not in any way I could see. But something in her was leaking. A dryness behind her eyes, a tremor she refused to let out into the world. "Just finish it," she said again, softer. Not to me this time, to the structure, to the night, to a promise she'd made somebody or been forced to keep. The words landed on me like a request I'd heard before and refused, a lifetime ago, in a hospital room where the machines had stopped pretending. "What is it?" I asked, because if I didn't ask, I would do something stupid, like help without reading the instructions. "A seal," she said. "Sleeping. Bound by intent." She looked at my jacket like it was a flag in a storm. "You woke it." "No," I said. "I covered you." "That's how," she said simply. And that was the first time I believed I wasn't the strangest part of my night. A wave slapped the causeway pylons. The sound climbed the nail and turned into a chord that made my teeth ache. Across the bay, the stadium's roof LEDs tried to reboot and failed, stuck showing a broken sponsor logo that now looked like a warning. A billboard flickered a luxury condo ad into a field of white where the smiling couple had been scraped off by a careless hand. "Ethan," Lyra said, "if you're going to leave, do it now." I looked at the opening. It breathed. I looked at her. She didn't. "I'm not leaving," I said. It surprised me how easy that was. Like the part of me that runs had gone out for smokes. "Noted," she said again, and the seam widened, and the corridor inside exhaled a welcome that tasted like storm water and old truths. She stepped. I followed. The city behind us held its breath. The sky wrote back to the bay. The drones forgot our names. And somewhere offshore, far beyond the horizon, and exactly in front of us, something rearranged itself to better hear what we were about to say. The corridor pulsed like a lung, learning to trust air again. Light soaked up our shadows and gave them back on a delay, as if it wanted to correct how silhouettes usually lie about a person. The walls had grain, muscle fiber, tree ring, braided cable, none of it still. Every few steps, faint glyphs blinked awake and trailed us like bioluminescent fish. "Where are we?" I asked, low, because it felt wrong to raise my voice inside a body. "Not where," Lyra said. "Whom?" She brushed the wall with her fingers, and a ripple passed through the corridor, a cat tasting a familiar hand. "This vessel is a grown machine. It answers intent. Yours startled it. Mine kept it from closing forever." "I've been called startling," I said. "Usually not by architecture." A seam unstitched ahead. We stepped into a small chamber, whose floor tilted almost imperceptibly toward the bay, as if the ship never forgot water, even when it pretended to be stone. The air smelled like salt and hot metal after rain. Hums layered, one low and patient, another high and thin, and under both a beat almost exactly like mine. Lyra turned to me. "Hold out your hand." "Is this the part where I lose it?" "The part where you gain a responsibility." Her tone wasn't warm, it was exact. I held out my hand. Her palm hovered a breath above my wrist. The glyphs at her collarbone brightened, then answered somewhere inside the walls. The chamber tightened, relaxed, and clicked into a decision. Heat kissed my skin. A coin-thin disc rose like a bubble from nothing and settled flush into my wrist. Warm. Not metal and not flesh, but certain. My pulse curled around it like a vine on trellis. I jerked on instinct. It didn't give. It wasn't attached. It had been convinced. "What did you do?" I didn't. She watched the disc as if listening for an echo. "You touched a seal in the correct condition. You offered cover without contract. Our infrastructure listens for that." It bound. "Bound what?" "Your intent to a protocol," she said. And then, because she must have seen my face trying to make that sentence edible, she added, "You made a promise to care. The seal believed you. Now it treats your heartbeat as a key. You're a closer." That sounds final. It is. Doors like to be sure of who ends them. I flexed my fingers. The disc warmed with the movement, then cooled, then mapped itself to the small tremor I didn't show patience. It was reading me like a book I'd left on a bus. "Why me?" I asked. Lyra tilted her head. "Because your first move was to protect what you didn't understand. Because you didn't ask what I could pay. Because you kept your voice steady when the night bent." She paused. "And because I needed you." The words hit like a wave under the one you see coming. She walked to the chamber's far curve, resting her hand on the living wall. Glyphs unspooled across it, a map sketching itself in lines of light. The bay, the causeway, a thin grid of Miami's lit bones. 3 points flared, one where we stood, one under the stadium's old retractable roof, one out near the chain of gates in the Keys, where the city drinks and the ocean decides. "Anchors," I said, guessing. "Seals." Her white irises clouded and cleared, as if focus cost. "My people seed young worlds with living machines to hold plates, quiet fractures, keep tides honest. They grow around us and under us. They do not interfere, unless asked by a bonded pair. My role was to complete the network, then leave. Another faction wants it opened, not finished, so they can force a claim. If they pry the seals before they're braided, the planet sings wrong. Coastlines redraw. Your city drowns with excellent manners. They'll just call it an unprecedented event, I muttered. Language is a soft weapon, she agreed, with no humor at all. The second point on the map pulsed, under the stadium. The third winked a warning I could feel in the disc at my wrist, a tiny tug toward the keys, like a compass finally remembering north. 3 sites, she said. They require 2 signatures to complete. Intent braided. They will accept mine. They will accept yours now. Together, we finish what was designed to be chosen. Bonded pair, I said, and wished it sounded less like a ring and more like a wrench. Don't confuse our word for yours, she said. Bonding is not romance. Good, I said too fast, and felt heat crawl up my neck where the chamber light could absolutely see it. What stops your rivals from just grabbing people? Signing them up at gunpoint? Seals won't accept signatures under coercion. They listen for a pattern, protection without price, risk offered with open hands. She glanced at my jacket on her shoulders, weightless for her and heavy on me in ways I didn't have time to count. You set that pattern. The network knows you. Feels a little personal for infrastructure. That's what makes it safe. She looked at my face like it was a line she was reading for the last time. And dangerous. The corridor shivered. I felt the city above us, helicopters beating the dark, Coast Guard cutters shouldering into position, a news drone swarm trying to solve for angles. The chamber exhaled a tone that made the disc in my wrist vibrate in sympathy. Lyra stepped close, a centimeter too close for the part of me that liked clean lines. The jacket collar brushed her throat. Ethan, there's a rival fleet staging above the storm line. They will try to pry an unfinished seal. They will fail. But failing at that scale is catastrophic. We have to move the braid first. Stadium. Keys. Back to the bay. Her voice softened, unprogrammed. With you. Not because you're convenient. Because you're required. I was going to finish a double shift and buy cafeteria coffee, I said. This is an upgrade. Don't promise coffee you can't deliver, she said. Solemn. And for a small, absurd second, I almost laughed. Fine, I said. Let's move. She extended her hand. Not royal. Not begging. Offering. I took it. The chamber's far curve irised open. The corridor beyond leaned toward the stadium, the way a path through mangroves leans toward water you can't see yet. As we stepped, the ship corrected my balance with micro movements, the way a friend steadies an elbow. The disc on my wrist ticked warmth with each heartbeat, like it was applauding my continued existence. Lyra, I said as the wall glow bled into a deeper, faster pulse. That rival fleet, who are they to you? Family, she said, in the way someone says weather or gravity. Curators. They believe stewardship is ownership plus silence. And you? I was one, she said. System commander. Protocol neat. I obeyed because I was written to understand why rules exist. She glanced at our linked hands like she'd found a smudge she wanted to keep. Then I met your city. It fails loud. It loves without paperwork. You think that's better? I think it's alive. The corridor lifted us like an escalator that had decided to try kindness. We rose through the nail's throat and into night again, onto slick stone under a crowd control sky. Helicopters thudded. The causeway's traffic lights were dead, then blue, then uncertain. The drones that earlier forgot our names tried to remember them and argued privately about it. People had pushed closer. A woman in a foil poncho lifted a baby high to see, like she was showing the child a comet. Two teens in soaked uniforms held hands hard enough to leave marks. A man with a megaphone asked if we were here for donations. Lyra squeezed my hand once. "Do not answer the lies the lights make," she murmured. "What about the people?" "You can answer them." I faced the line of eyes calibrated by a lifetime of emergency alerts, flood tracks on apartment paint, evacuation practice on elevator screens, sugar-white funeral programs in drawers. I raised my free hand the way you do across crushed metal when you need everybody to breathe. "We're stabilizing the waterworks," I said, because a metaphor is sometimes the only stretcher you can find. "Stay off the lower causeways. Leave the boats tied. If you can go inland, do it slow and share the road. If you can't, move 2 floors up and fill your tubs before the pressure shifts. If you have meds, keep them on you. If you have neighbors, keep them with you." A pulse ran through the crowd. The electricity of "I can do that." It's the first thing you give disaster that disaster can't eat. Lyra tugged. Time moved us. We sprinted down the causeway spine toward the stadium, the city rising in dark panes and half-lit teeth, advertisement towers showing stalled loops of smiling people who always have power. Above the storm line, low and mean, a crescent of silhouettes flashed and settled, the fleet-like cutouts laid on cloud. Lightning crept between hull and vapor, a spider learning its own web. As we ran, Lyra matched my pace like we'd practiced. The disc hummed. The nail dimmed behind us, holding. The ship's breath followed in my ribs, and for the first time since the night went sideways, I felt something under the fear that wasn't bravado. We were not done. We were necessary. And the city, loud and breakable and full of strangers who still held their phones like candles, ran with us. We ran the spine of the causeway with the bay on both sides breathing too fast. Helicopters chopped the dark. Police cruisers stuttered blue without rhythm. The blackout wasn't total. Pockets of power glowed like campfires in a drowned forest. But the city felt unbuttoned. Lyra moved like she expected gravity to be reasonable if asked politely. I moved like a man who knows knees. News drones tracked us at a respectful menace. A municipal speaker demanded we remain where we were for assessment. Lyra flicked 2 fingers, and the speaker believed we had complied, cheerfully logging our obedience to a database that would never locate our feet. "That's not hacking," she said when I glanced. "It's etiquette." "Your kind of etiquette gets tickets torn up," I said. "My kind prevents wars." She didn't sound proud. She sounded tired. The stadium rose ahead, a concrete bowl rimmed in empty suites, its roof stuck half open from a hurricane. 3 years back, the city had agreed to call seasonal variants. Flood markers painted on the pillars like growth charts for a child nobody wanted. The big sponsor screen, 50 yards of happy family, blinked into a clean white void as we approached. The disc in my wrist warmed. Something under the field woke like an eye. Security tried to form a line at Gate C. They had rain ponchos and borrowed valor. I held up my EMT badge, and the part of me that knows how to be obeyed did the rest. "Evac to the upper concourse," I told the nearest sergeant. "Keep the ramps clear. If your radios go to music, ignore it." "It lies." "Yes, sir," he said before his brain arrived, and then he blinked at Lyra's jacket like it was a new rank. "Ethan Cole," she said under her breath, tasting my name, "is a vector." "I'm a dad with a day job," I said. "Don't make me a sword." "Not a sword," she said. "A door." We dropped to the field through a maintenance tunnel that smelled like wet cardboard and sunscreen. The grass was fake. The water under it was not. The seal's presence pressed through my soles, counting me. Lyra knelt and put her hand to the turf as if saying grace. "It's newer than the nail," she said, listening. "They grew it when you built this stadium. Your contractors poured concrete around a sleeping heart." "Florida construction," I said. We're good at not asking questions. She glanced up. That's an old pact with my people. Excuse me? Your government signed to host our infrastructure quietly. In exchange, we guided storms just enough to keep you arguing about luck instead of leaving the coast. She met my eyes. We're not altruists. We're gardeners. We keep what we plant. That sat wrong in my bones. So the floodlines were always negotiable. Until now. Thunder rolled across the roof ribs, close and mean. The rival fleet edged the storm shelf, hulls thin and long, as if they'd been designed by subtraction. Lightning crawled between them and cloud, slow and domesticated. A blue spear dropped, felt by the back of my teeth before my ears. The stadium lights flared and died. The disc in my wrist burned, then cooled. They're testing the lock, Lyra said. Their doctrine, force before finesse. She stood and held out her hand. 2 signatures. I set my palm over the turf where her fingers had been. Heat rose, steady as a sleeping kid. Lyra layered her hand over mine. The seal tasted us. Salt, intention, the jacket, the decision I hadn't realized I'd made when I didn't run. The field shivered. Glyphs slid through the fake grass like fish in clear water. A seam parted, and air from below gave the world that wet penny smell again. I felt something in the seal ask a question. Lyra squeezed, answering without words. I answered by staying. The click was not sound. It was a permission my body recognized before my brain. The seal braided itself to the nail, a stretch of attention like a bridge thrown between 2 cliffs. Somewhere under the stadium, living machinery wrote my heartbeat into its list of allowed endings. The roof boomed as the rival shot hit the storm's edge and skittered. On the concourses above, people cheered without understanding why. A security drone tried to scan us and returned authorized personnel in a font that looked embarrassed. I found Lyra looking at me like I had solved a problem she didn't know how to phrase. You steady, she said. That's rare. I'm improvising calm. It reads as truth. Don't tell my supervisor. Her mouth tried on a smile and gave it back, not because she couldn't keep it, but because she didn't know if it was hers to wear. Then her face smoothed, listening. We have to move. The keys are calling. The tide gate is oldest. It will not wait politely. We took the service exit into a rain that had upgraded itself to knives. The city smelled like ozone and fried optimism. Lyra cut left toward a transit hub where the maglev had died, halfway between stations and commuters, were triangulating dignity on foot. A delivery bot crouched under an awning like a dog that knew thunder. A kid tried to wake it with a candy bar. Lyra knelt, touched the bot's sensor, and left it sleeping. The kid scowled. Hey lady, we need that. My aunt's insulin. Lyra reached for her collar, fingers finding the glyphs there, the way a pianist finds middle C. Resource exchange, she began, protocol settling on her tongue. Don't, I said. She stopped. The boy's eyes flicked between us, measuring. I crouched to his level. Where's your aunt? 3rd floor, 12B, he said. She won't leave 'cause the stairs are dumb. Show me, I said, to him and to Lyra both. We detoured into a condo shell that smelled like lemon cleaner fighting mildew. On the stairwell, I counted her breaths behind me and hated that I'd learned them. 12B opened on a woman gray with effort, a vial rattling in an empty box. I took stock. Lyra took the room. She stepped toward the counter, placed both palms on the fake granite, and hummed a chord low in her throat. The room answered. A panel in the wall unsealed like a mouth and offered a neat stack of emergency packs that had never existed until this moment. Lyra pushed one to me. Is this your medication? The aunt blinked, then nodded too slowly. The label printed itself as we watched. The boy made a noise between a laugh and a sob. I prepped a dose, checked her sugar, found a vein. Lyra watched the needle the way pilots watch storms. When it was done, the woman sagged into relief that made the air easier to breathe. "How much?" she asked, because the country had trained her to. Lyra turned to me. Protocol rose again in her throat. She had a price table for this in her bones. I shook my head. She swallowed the table. "No charge," she said carefully, each word a small insurrection. "But share your water with your neighbors. Keep the insulin in the tub. Coldest place when the power is unkind." The woman nodded like prayer. The boy lifted the pack as if it might fly away. Back in the hallway, Lyra's voice went small. "I was going to name a cost." "I know," I said. "You chose not to." "I'm not sure if I chose or you made me." "I didn't make you. I asked." She looked at me like that was the rarest verb in our galaxy. We cut south to the marina, where the city kept its stubborn boats. The keys pulsed on the map in my wrist like a heartbeat under a bandage. "How do we get there with the maglev down?" I asked. Lyra glanced at the water's skin. "We ask nicely." She walked to the edge, toes to the line where the bay rehearsed for ocean, and pressed both hands to her jacket, then to the air. Ripples tightened, braided, rose. A low wedge of water lifted itself into a shape that wasn't a boat until it decided it was. 2 seats presented. A canopy unfolded like a thought. "You're serious," I said. "Always," she said. We stepped into the hole made of held-together sea. It accepted our weight as a suggestion. The moment we settled, the wedge pushed off and slid into the channel with little more effort than a sigh. As we took the first curve, a voice I'd never heard, and knew too well, slid into the boat as if it had sat with us all along. "Lyra," it said, silk over steel. "Return to command. Your deviation is recorded. Your bonded human will be detached and compensated." Lyra's shoulders went formal. "Curator," she said, "protocol allows field discretion during hostile intervention. Your field discretion has become sentiment." She didn't answer. I could hear the answer inside the line of her back. The voice turned to me. "Ethan Cole. Father. Technician of flesh. This arrangement is above your pay grade. Release the seal token. We will manage the rest." "Hard pass," I said. "You misunderstand. This is not a vote. This is a recall." The disc on my wrist heated to a no. The waterboat shivered, then hardened its skin. Lyra's hand found my knee, not asking for courage, sharing some. "Curator," she said, and there was mourning in the title. "If you pry an unfinished gate, you will drown a city that has not consented to your guardianship. That's not stewardship, it's conquest." "Ownership plus silence," the voice said, amused. "You remember the definition." A gap opened in the storm above the bay. The rival fleet showed its teeth. "Finish the gate," Lyra whispered to me. "Not the curator, not the knight." "We'll answer them with work." The waterboat knits itself tighter as we knife toward the keys. The storm shelf rides low, a ceiling dropped for inspection. Every few breaths, the rival fleet flashes and the bay flinches. The voice of the curator hangs in the air like a law that expects applause. "Lyra," it purrs from no direction I can point to. "You were built to finish, not to feel." "I can do both," she says, and the jacket I gave her creases at the elbow as she leans into the wind. The seal disc on my wrist answers with a pulse that matches the chop. Bridges rise out of the dark, slabs and arches, some collapsed, some shining with pocket power, where stubborn islanders wired their own suns. We skim past a bait shop turned shelter. Lanterns line the railing like a procession of patient moons. A woman on the dock raises a weather radio and salutes. I return it without thinking. Lyra watches, filing the gesture somewhere rules don't reach. The tide gate appears as a jag of black against black, then blooms into itself. Rings set deep where ocean narrows, grown stone ribbed like whalebone. The air changes. Even the storm respects a hinge this old. We climb from the boat onto a platform slick with stories. The gate hums in the bones, a low unison that makes my knees want to lock and listen. Oldest, Lyra says, precedes your nation by several names. It learned the shape of your coast before your maps did. And it wants us, I say. It wants someone who won't sell the answer. The curator's voice arrives with the rain. Return control, Lyra. We will complete the network. The human can keep his trinket as remembrance. It's not a trinket, I tell the sky. It's a promise. Lyra exhales. We begin, palm to palm. We stand before the first ring. Glyphs sleep along its rim, shallow as low tide. I place my hand where hers lands. Heat rises. Old stone wakes like a limb coming back from numb. The gate tastes us. My jacket, her command, the quiet choice under both. The first ring turns. Water bulks, then relaxes. The second ring waits. Lightning walks the line of ships above the storm shelf. A spear falls. The impact cracks the air. The platform shakes like a taut truth. My hand slips on wet stone. Lyra's grip clamps, precise, possessive by accident, human on purpose. Focus, she says. The seals decide what we are when we touch them. We touch again. The second ring begins its slow arc, teeth engaging teeth with the patience of continents. My wrist burns. The disc cools it. The water presses forward, then steps back. A guard dog smelling a stranger at the fence. The curator modulates tone. Ethan Cole. Your custody arrangements are a matter of record. Accept displacement funds and release our officer. You talk like a social worker with a warship, I say. No. His son, the curator says to Lyra, soft as a knife. An asset with sentimental leverage. Lyra's hand tightens. Curator, she says, and for the first time her voice shakes. If you touch the boy, I will expose our agreements to this planet in a language even your councils cannot redact. Threats are sloppy. No, she says. They're honest. The third ring sleeps. We step to it. I press my palm. She covers it. The ring is cold enough to sharpen thought. It asks again. Why us? Lyra answers with a little bow of the head that contains a life I cannot see. I answer by not leaving. The click comes like a small, deserved joy. The third ring turns. Above, one ship breaks formation and noses down through the cloud, blue glare washing the ocean flat. The platform groans. The gate's hum drops a register, bracing. Tour boats miles away spin, compasses panicking. Brace, Lyra whispers. They will strike the hinge. They can't open it, I say. They can break it, she says. And that's the problem with pride. The spear hits. Noise goes white. I taste copper and old panic. The platform tilts and snaps back. A wave reaches the height of a house and pauses like it's considering a new career as a wall. I grab Lyra's waist to keep her from losing the plane. She lets me, and for 1 second, the storm is an audience denied. Her breath grazes my ear. Almost there. The fourth ring sits half buried, the oldest line on an old face. We kneel into it. My knees complain. The gate hums in sympathy like it has worked with older bones than mine. The curator's voice loses silk. Return. Now. No, Lyra says, and then, to me, softer. Finish it, Ethan. We press. The ring resists. I feel the gate recall every signature it ever learned. Fishermen who asked for an extra inch of kindness during a king tide. Engineers who built too close and begged forgiveness. A kid who skipped a rock and looked surprised when the sea returned it. The ring wants intent, braided with loss. It wants pledge without price. I can't pay you, I tell the stone, out loud, because lying is useless. I can only stay. The ring accepts. It turns, teeth kissing teeth, with a sound like a long-held breath finally leaving. The gate is not done. A seam opens at the center where the rings meet, a throat-learning speech. Light wells up from deep like a city in a bottle. The waterboat below us shivers and bows. The rival ship angling down flares, adjusts, shows a belly full of bad decisions. The curator speaks again, formal now, like reading a rights manual. Lyra, by authority of the chorus, your deviation triggers retrieval. Stand down for memory extraction. Lyra sets her feet. No. Then we will remove your pair. Blue light uncoils from the descending hull, a lasso made of law. It throws. Lyra moves faster than thought. She steps between me and the light and raises both hands. The jacket absorbs the first lick, darkening like it drank ink. The disc on my wrist burns to a warning. The lasso catches the platform edge and begins to drag, grinding stone like sugar. I do the stupid thing that is the right thing. I jump to the anchor point and slap my palm on the grinding seam. Hey, I tell the gate. Help! The living stone answers. Vines of glyphs race around my hand to my forearm, a sleeve of borrowed purpose. The lasso slides. The platform stops sliding with it. The rival ship strains. The storm growls. The gate steadies because a person asked it to without price. Lyra laughs, one astonished pulse of sound that rewrites the night. She drops her hands. That's new, she says. Add it to the protocol, I say. And the word protocol doesn't sound like a cage when I say it. We need the close, not the almost. The seal wants the choice we started with. She looks at my jacket. I look at her hands. First intent, she says. We complete it. We step together to the seam at the gate's heart. I lay my palm over the disc. She covers my hand with hers. It's the same shape as that first stupid kindness on the causeway. Choice, not accident. The gate inhales through us. A cord rolls down the rings and into the bones of the islands. The rival ship shudders, lights hiccuping. The lasso snaps off like thread burned through. The storm blinks, confused, then remembers it is only weather. Up the coast, the nail brightens at a delay that feels like a heartbeat. Under the stadium, the second seal answers, with a low, glad groan you could mistake for a subway if you weren't listening. The three braid. The ocean takes the hint and steps back one polite pace, as if a hand pressed to its chest and said, enough. The curator returns in a new key, dangerous because soft. You are in violation, Lyra. The chorus will rewrite you. Lyra turns toward the sky and lifts her chin. Rewrite me, and you'll have to explain why the network hears a human first. Cameras catch that. Everywhere. Phones on docks, helmet cams on cops, drones with sponsors, a grandmother's tablet propped in a kitchen where water once climbed to the second drawer. The city sees her face when she chooses us. The fleet sees her rank when she refuses them. The word spreads like a better storm. I claim asylum, she says, and the jacket sits like proof. I claim partner rights under paired completion. I claim witness for your contracts and your threats. Denied, the curator says. Too late, I answer, and I don't know where my audacity learned to speak, because the gate isn't done, saving only us. It speaks, not in English, not in her tongue, in action. The braid projects itself, maps of pressure, tide and shelf, city veins, into the clouds where the lightning used to write fear. The pattern goes public. It can't be retracted without pulling the ocean apart. The chorus can't sing that quiet. Sirens from the mainland slide down into normal time. Coast Guard cutters bob like grateful dogs. The rival fleet edges back, offended, The storm relaxes the way a back relaxes when a hand you trust tells it to. The disc on my wrist cools from brand to ring. A faint circle remains, not ownership, not debt. Just a mark where a promise pressed too hard and left a memory. Lyra leans, forehead almost to mine. The world stops pretending we aren't doing what we're doing. I'm supposed to return for erasure, she says, very calm. Don't, I say, equally calm. They will come. We'll answer with work, I say, stealing her line because it deserves recycling. And witnesses. She looks at my mouth like it's a map she's not cleared to read. Then she turns to the sky and says into every camera, every drone, every grandma's tablet, "We are not your children, and you are not our cage." The bay takes a long breath. Miami exhales with it. The curator leaves without hanging up. We stand on the oldest hinge and listen to a city decide to keep itself. Boats untie in a measured way. People move 2 floors up and share the road and hold their phones like candles, but not for fear now, for directions. The network hums, newborn and already wise enough to know it needs us. Lyra slides her fingers between mine, a gesture that isn't written anywhere in her protocols, and I feel the ship in the bay purr under the rain the way a patient purrs when you finally set the bone right. Finished, she says, and the word doesn't mean ended. It means chosen.